can feel you when you're not around. When the night gets cold, I won't be alone. We won't be alone.
Moxley sends it to the outside. He can't get there. Kevin King is going to win the Barbizzo FTF Cup Series.
Into the lead. Bud gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag.
Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are 5 wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordan Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they are going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas. Oh, get your front there.
He's got it. He's got it. Get there. No.
Canvas is in.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to FTF.GG's coverage of the second race in round 2 of the 2023 eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series, live tonight from the virtual Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. James Pike here alongside Caleb Hoffman, ready for another Thursday night of eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series action. And tonight, Caleb, it's the tricky triangle where there are two things that stand out to me just with the way racing has evolved, not only in the trucks that you'll see tonight, also used by the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series in real life, but also in the Cup cars that are used by the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. Drafting. This track is so big, it can make a difference, and these straights are so long. We have the longest front straightaway in the whole of NASCAR that we're working with tonight, so tucking up underneath somebody's rear bumper is going to be key to gaining speed, but also, maybe more importantly, saving fuel.
Absolutely. Draft is going to be so important here tonight. I mean, like you said, longest front straightaway in NASCAR. You're going to see speeds up to 180, 185 here tonight, and anytime you're running that fast, I mean, draft and aero is going to be super important. And like you said, too, the fuel strategy element of it all, we're looking at right now, I think fuel strategy is going to be right about that halfway mark at lap 30. That's going to be super important because every lap you can stretch out here is going to open up your strategy all more. And, you know, even from what we've seen in practice, you know, there are trucks that are getting sideways when you're going into that heavy braking zone in turn number 1, or even the tunnel turn number 3, the number of turns we can contest later. But, it's going to be a fun one here for sure, and I think this is going to push a lot of these guys to their limits.
We don't expect a lot of variation in pit strategy if we get a green flag race all the way, but that lap or two difference between when you come in may end up making all the difference. And you're in and out. Your pit stop delta tonight, I think, is also going to play a very big role into how things shape up at the tricky triangle. Beyond that, one of the more entertaining tracks that we go to in NASCAR, especially in the sim, you think of that great finish last year in the Coke Series between Casey Kerwin and Zach Novak. We've also got plenty of people here in tonight's race that have experience not only with this track at official and Class C open races, but also in the Contender Series and in the eNASCAR qualifying ladder.
Yeah, and I mean, I think anything is possible here in Road to Pro, especially after what we saw 2 weeks ago at Mid-Ohio. I mean, who would have thought with, you know, one lap to go that Kostowitz wouldn't come home as the victor of that race, and instead Daniel Buttafuoco ends up going to victory lane. So, I mean, we can come in here tonight and play analysts, but nothing's going to matter until we actually get out on the racetrack and see all these guys start turning their laps. It's going to be a fun one tonight for sure.
Waiting on the final, call it minute or so of qualifying. We still have about 10 drivers who have yet to put down their times. You take a look at some of the ones taking laps right now and some of the drivers that are making their way around the racetrack and making things happen. So many people here trying to get the best starting spot possible, trying to make sure that they get good track position. You'll see whether or not it matters in a little bit, but for now, we'll keep an eye on Anthony Burrows here in the 62, setting down his second lap of his qualifying session.
And you can see going through the tunnel turn right there, going to be, again, one of the most challenging parts of this racetrack here tonight. Good clean lap for Burrows so far, and right now looks like Taylor Hurst with a 53.605. I mean, this field is going to be super bunched together. It looks like everybody's separated by only about 4 tenths.
Your fast time right now is a 53.6. Your slow time amongst the bunch primarily is, about a 53.9. About the top 30 pretty much split right in that mix as Burrows goes to fourth on the board. And that will conclude qualifying for the second race of the 2023 eNASCAR qualifying iRacing Series Round 2. So let's go to the starting grid and tell you where your favorite driver will begin this evening. Taylor Hurst keeps the pole with that 53.605 second lap. He'll start up front alongside Timmy Pacioli. Andrew Navarro and Anthony Burrows will roll off third and fourth. Kwame Stott starts tonight from the fifth position. Seth DeMerchant, the Mainer, rolls off from sixth. Seventh on the grid is Daniel Smallwood. Brad Wright begins his campaign tonight from the eighth spot. Ninth on the grid is Jake Nichols. And 10th belongs to John Jenkins.
Looking on back to row number 6. Inside going to be Spencer Burns in the number 06 machine. Boyd Hogan starts to his outside in the 12th position. Blaze Crawford going to roll off 13th with Dominic Lukomsky on to his outside. Daniel Eberhardt the third in the 15th position. Austin Johnson to his outside in 16th. Row 9 going to be Hunter Johnson next to Johnny Avila. And then rounding out your top 20 going to be Max Brady to the inside with Cole Hooper to his outside.
Michael P. Frisch begins from 21st this evening alongside him in row 11. Brandon Hanna. Row 12 is where you'll find James Holzer and Trayton Lapsovich, driver in the NASCAR Pinty Series up in Canada. Brendan Hmiel starts in the 25th spot. He'll start alongside Alex Kalanick. Row 14 is where you'll find the defending winner of this race in the qualifying series. Jonathan Delaney starts alongside James Houghton. Kevin Champagne and Jesse Kaplan complete the top 30.
Rounding out the rest of your field, row 16, Chris Wetz to the inside, Christopher Hill to the outside in 32nd position. Blake Neer rolling off 33rd here tonight. Matthew Baird at his outside in 34th. And then rounding out your field is going to be Yusuf Ghali.
There's your 35-car grid. So now that you know where everyone's starting, let's take a moment to learn a little bit more about Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. This is the only triangle-shaped track that we visit in eNASCAR, or real-life NASCAR for that matter. It's 2.5 miles in distance, just over 4 kilometers around the 3 or 5 turn circuit, depending on how you look at it. One long front straightaway, turns 1 and 2, modeled after the old Trenton Speedway, which has since been shut down. Turn 3, modeled after, or turn 2, modeled after Indianapolis, and then 3 or 4 and 5, depending on how you look at it, the Milwaukee Mile. 14 degrees of banking in turn 1, 8 degrees of banking in the tunnel turn 2, and turn 3, 6 degrees of banking, or alternatively, 1 and 2, 14, 3, 8, and 4 and 5, 6. If you're looking for time of day, it is July 15th, 2023 in the sim, just after 12:15 p.m. Eastern. Partly cloudy skies in the sim. Air temp 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp 108 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds to the west at 4 miles an hour. Humidity of 63%. Caleb Hoffman, when you're looking at the race specifically tonight, what do our fans at home watching need to know?
Yeah, I mean, it should be a one-stop race here tonight. I think cautions are really going to be the main thing to look out for here today. If we get an all-green flag race, then I think with pit strategy and everything else included, it's going to be a rather predictable where you see everybody come around that halfway mark. Might see some leaders try to stretch it a little bit, but I think if we get that unpredictable element added in of those cautions, then anything can be set here tonight. So just going to have to see once we get this green flag dropped.
60 laps on the docket for drivers tonight, 150 miles, 241 kilometers ready to go here. Pit road speed, 55 miles an hour, 55 rather. And the fuel window, 28 to 32 laps. So watch the halfway point of this race as we go. If we go green to that point, I think we can safely expect just about the entire field in at that stage. As Taylor Hurst stands on the gas pedal, and we are green flag racing in Pocono, race number 2 of round number 2 of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series for 2023 is green, and immediately Caleb, they fan out 4 and 5 wide into turn 1 as expected, and here comes a big move on the inside. To the bottom lane goes that bright blue and black machine, making things happen up the tunnel turn. It's Andrew Navarro trying to take the race lead away from Hurst.
And you can see already how important that draft is. Everybody fanning out 3 and 4 wide. Got an almost pack racing element going on, but you got to get settled down right here for the tunnel turn. This is where it can get tight for a lot of guys. Looks like we'll be okay for right now.
They made it through the tunnel turn cleanly. Can they make it through this final complex? They are 4 wide, just a little bit further back of our shot. It's 2 wide out there, but you see the madness up right around the 15th position. That is absurd. Very rarely do we see 4 wide in turn 3 or 4 and 5, depending on how you want to slice it. But that's pretty unprecedented even by my standards. I'd like to think I've seen a decent amount of Pocono races.
Absolutely. And I mean, they're still 3 wide a little further back here, showing how important this track position is going to be early on. You see up front, everybody else has started to figure things out. Only a few cars in double file formation. Mostly that group of Anthony Burrows, Kwame Scott, Daniel Smallwood is the main one that's racing up here as they head back into turn number 2.
You make a very important point when you talk about track position, and for more on that, let's bring in the third member of our broadcast team tonight, our pit reporter, Justin Malillo. Justin, you were talking, oh, never mind, trouble in the back of the field. A few cars went around. Can't tell who was involved in that outright. Chris Wetz is the one that gets hung up there, but big incident over in the tunnel turn to really shake things up early on.
And again, just getting through that tunnel turn is half the battle sometimes. There was a little bit of contact between Jesse Kaplan, Chris Wetz obviously involved. You're going to replay right here. Once again, just going through turn 2, and it's just a stack up a little ahead of these guys. And you see Jonathan Delaney with a bit of contact. Jesse Kaplan was the one that got turned around initially. Chris Wetz made that contact and really got hung up. But no caution.
Wetz definitely got the worst of it, as did Kaplan. Delaney, I just checked the right rear of his truck. I think he actually is okay, minus all the track position that all of these drivers lost, not just him. But his truck definitely looks the cleanest out of the bunch that were involved in this. We'll get a good onboard look here and see just how tricky this could get as you slide through this and then on the brakes again and just making it through. I think that was indeed Yusuf Ghali who was able to avoid all that. And now we have another wreck here out of turn 3 or 4 and 5.
Yeah, and that is a caution has been put out on the speedway. And that was right in turn number 3. James Houghton was one I saw going around. Tagged the wall quite a bit, and this is the 20 machine.
Trayton Lapsevich here, who got a little bit of help. We'll take a look at all the incidents. There's Houghton and Lapsevich you get together. And yeah, just one of those things where Houghton came down. I think Lapsevich slid up and across the nose of Houghton's machine. Did Lapsevich go and into the fence pretty well hung up there.
And this is the cause of the caution right here. Even though we had that other incident and just hard impact to that outside wall, and no fast repairs here, so Lapsevich's night looks like it's going to be an uphill battle, if not outright just finished already.
That is a mangled heap of sheet metal that truck is on pit road. I'd be surprised if we see him take any further part in tonight's race, so this will likely end up being his drop. So let's now try and bring in Justin Malillo for the first time this evening to the broadcast. Justin, we were talking, or about to talk about track position and why it matters so much here at Pocono, but with this early pit stop, do we think anybody tries to come down for a splash of gas to maybe stretch a green flag run, especially if you're towards the back of the field?
If anybody, James Pike, is going to be coming into the pits here, it's probably going to be the latter half of the field. Yes, we were talking before the race started, and yes, track position is huge. As you see, those drivers all fanned out 3, 4, even 5 wide in some positions. And I'm seeing our first pitters come down pit road, and they are all 29th and below. That's James Houghton, our first one in 29th, coming down, and looks about 5 trucks coming down pit road here. So it's a strategy call, but being that we only have fuel cells that can hold about half of the race, 30 laps. There's really not any strategy here besides maybe fixing some damage, maybe trying to put some tires on. It's really about that track position, because you're going to be gridlocked with how drafty this track can be.
Do you think there's any value for the handful that came down with regards to trying to stretch out fuel? Let's say, we get a green flag run and we go 30 laps. Do you think there's any advantage, if you're already back there and you're pitting, that you may gain if we run a little bit long and get a caution, say on lap maybe 35, 36 or so?
We've only gone 3 laps. I don't think it's that big of an advantage at all. it's really not going to help with a pit stop later, especially the guys that are already in the pack. I mean, they're back there because they didn't qualify well or they didn't qualify at all. So it's probably not going to make a difference here, James Pike. I think that everybody who stayed out here, we had 29 trucks stay on the track, and everybody's still got to pit one more time.
And we still look like we're going to have another lap under yellow. I do not see lights coming off of the pace car at this point. So we may end up having to circle around this triangle for one more lap before we get the green. That would give us a restart on lap 7 of the 60 scheduled to run tonight. So we'll watch here as they cross the start-finish line, and we'll see whether or not the lights come off of the pace truck, and they do. So we are going green coming up here on lap 7 of 60. Caleb Hoffman, is there anything that you glean from that little opening stint, just with the way everybody raced each other and the nature of the small amount of green flag racing that we've seen up to this point?
Yeah, and I mean, you see already, I mean, the 3 and 4 wide action that we saw, just how aggressive everybody's going to be on these restarts. And this is going to be a very defining restart for this race because, you know, if we see any sort of, you know, contact that leads to another caution, then we can very easily find ourselves in a cycle of yellows here tonight. And, you know, we've already had 2 displays of how treacherous it is to get around this racetrack, just with other trucks that you have to account for. But even this track itself, just how tricky it is to get around. They do call it the tricky triangle. So 2 incidents already, and we've gotten 1 caution out of it. So these guys got to be super careful, or else we'll be doing a lot of pacing tonight.
All eyes up here on Taylor Hurst, who really is trying to start fabulously in round 2 of the qualifying series. He was the winner in his race 2 weeks ago at Mid-Ohio. He starts on pole here tonight. You know, 1 win we don't necessarily say guarantees a spot in the contender series, but 2 wins, and that's, I won't say it's impossible to fall out of the top 20, but you'd have to do an awful lot if he can go start to finish tonight and lose that spot. Through the final turn here at Pocono they go. It indeed is Hurst, then Navarro, Pacioli, Burrows, and Smallwood, your top 5. As the pace car will make that hard left turn onto pit road, and Barney will wave the green flag, and we're back racing at Pocono once again, and we'll see what kind of fan we get as these drivers potentially go 3, 4. We saw 5 wide on the initial start, a little bit further back. They look like they might have that similar idea, but a little bit more orderly this time into turn 1.
Yeah, for sure. Much less aggressive throughout this entire field. Max Brady, one of them, trying to force the issue here underneath Daniel Eberhardt, and just doesn't quite have that momentum off the corner as they head down your first little backstretch here. Still 3 wide. That's Johnny Avila, Spencer Burns and group.
Field thunders through the tunnel turn here at Pocono. Traditionally, pretty classically single file. You see a lot of brave passes rather, and brave attempts at making that turn. We'll see if someone decides to go 0 to hero, hero to 0 tonight, depending on how they attack that corner. But as it stands, top 5 immediately, all on the same page. Let's go single file. Let's see if we can't stretch this out from everybody else and force everybody to get in line to stay with us, lest they want to really watch that gap open up between the main pack and the leaders.
And this group really from a 10th to about 15th has really been the most aggressive I've seen on this racetrack. And it looks like we might be even seeing a little bit of 4 wide, a little bit of contact. Lukomsky and Blaze Crawford, they're going to save it somehow, but they were all over each other coming out of 1.
That was really, really close between Lukomsky and Crawford. I couldn't tell where that started, but that almost ended disastrously, because if they had spun on the exit there of the Trenton corners, that would have been about 10 trucks immediately swept up in that wreck, and that would have drastically changed the way this race would shape up. As we continue to look at some of the battles a little bit further back in the field, lots of drivers trying to wrestle for track position, because as Justin talked about, with the way the draft works out, once this gets struck out to single file racing, you really struggle to pick up spots.
Absolutely. We'll see going into turn number 1 again if anybody wants to force the issue. What caused that incident last time was we saw it was Johnny Avila, I believe, all the way up against the wall, 4 wide, and just squeeze a bunch of those guys in. Looks like we'll be okay for time being, but still a super close call. Throughout the pack, looks like we are starting to settle down just a little bit as they go into the tunnel turn once again.
Quickly. They have really let it go. And we are going to watch a good battle a little bit further back. Jonathan Delaney is there. I see Yusuf Ghali in the picture. Brendan Neal is right there. Blake Neer just ahead of this group. And then a little bit further back, James Houghton, Jesse Kaplan, Matthew Bear, Kevin Champagne also there. We'll take a look here at the replay and see what happened.
And this is Cole Hooper a little further back. And you see just that little bit of contact. What a great save there from Hooper in that 25.
Big save here. Meanwhile, a little bit further up the field, battle for the 5th position between Daniel Smallwood and Timmy Pacioli. Boyd Hogan also in the mix there too. Those three have opened up just a little bit of a gap. It's not a lot, but it's a 10th on Boyd Hogan, which is about as big a gap as we found amongst the pack and amongst this field so far.
Absolutely. And Daniel Smallwood has been one of these trucks on the move. Just got past Pacioli last time by. You can see one truck off track. That's Chris Wetz again, involved in that first incident that we didn't see a caution for.
Wetz just trying to make as many laps as he can. You never know with the way the points shake out. We've seen last lap, last quarter changes between making it into contender and missing the contender series outright. So even though we know it's not going to be a great finish for him, in his mind, at least get out there and run around the racetrack and complete as many laps as you can and try and get as many points out of a bad night as possible.
Absolutely. And again, all about consistency and just trying to string together finishes. Even if you are dealt a bad hand like Chris Wetz was there with that incident kind of out of his control, just got to do your best to go back out there and try to accrue as many points as you get. So tough night for him so far, but he'll try to turn it around. Looking back up at this front, though, it looks like everybody else has gotten the memo to calm down and just log laps for right now. Not much movement. As soon as I say that, you see Spencer Burns all over the back end of Daniel Eberhard a little further back in the pack. That's for the 10th position.
It seems like it's about that area where the good battles are beginning to shape up. I saw Blaze Crawford and Austin Johnson fighting for position about a half lap ago. Then you had Eberhard and Burns and DeMerchant in the mix there, right around the back end of the top 10. Burns, take a look here on Eberhard, potentially trying to pull a move towards the tunnel turn, and he'll drive a little bit lower than Eberhard, but not quite get to his rear quarter pin.
And again, that same, 10th to about 15th buffer is where we almost saw that incident off the restart, where guys like Johnny Avila made those aggressive moves in turn number 1. So something about this top 10, just everybody's wanting to break in right now and try to methodically march on, and that's just what you got to do here at Pocono.
Up to lap 13 of 60 here, already a 6th of the way through proceedings in tonight's second race of round 2 of the 2023 eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series in the virtual Pocono Speedway. Further back here in the field, lots of shuffling, I believe. Maybe Brendan Neal, Alex Kalanick's trying to fight for position, and Brandon Hanna was also racing for a spot. This all right around the 20th position as they work their way through the tunnel turn.
And again, a lot of contention around here. Right ahead of this 20th place group is a battle for 16th between Austin Johnson. James Holzer is going to send it in underneath that 21 truck. You see a good display of the crossover move here from Austin Johnson. Great job to get back side by side with Holzer.
Side by side with Holzer, now looking for Luke Kumsky, just trying to get back towards Blaze Crawford, who he was fighting with the lap ago. But it makes working the inside so intriguing, because what we found, and it's I think a little bit more pronounced with the Cup cars in the Coach Series, but that outside line tends to be the one that gets the draft. And if you don't hit it correctly, you don't slide back in line like you just saw Johnston do there, you end up potentially getting freight train and losing 4 or 5 positions if you get trapped outside of that main line and the main sort of formation where all the draft is coming from.
Absolutely, and Johnson did a great job of getting back in the line in front of Lukomsky there. You see Michael P. Frisch was trying to butt into that group as well, but in a lot of cases, it takes these guys working together to make up ground, and you saw Holzer and Johnson side by side, and what that did for them was, lost them time on Blaze Crawford up ahead of them. So you really have to work with this guy, whether it be side by side or just ahead of you, to make sure you're not losing too much ground, because that'll cost not only you, but that entire group you're working with.
Continuing to battle out back. Meanwhile, Seth DeMerchant took a peek to the inside of Brad Wright for the 8th position, a little bit further up the racetrack, and hasn't been able to make anything of it. Now trying to hold off, I believe, Spencer E. Burns, and then Daniel Eberhardt there too. And DeMerchant will successfully get back into line and maintain his place in the draft.
And it's going to be interesting as we get through this run as well. Once, your tires start to get hot and you start sliding all over this racetrack, it's going to be really easy for those the trucks behind you, rather, to make contact with you and upset that truck even further. So, again, it takes a lot of courtesy to run around these guys. And one little tap, and you'll send the guy in front of you around if you're not careful.
You get a really good look at the conga line here and just how big this group is. The first proper battle is between Michael P. Frisch and Dominic Lukomsky. That's for 18th and 19th on the racetrack, as Lukomsky got tight out of the Trenton complex, and he cedes the spot. So Frisch up to 18th, Lukomsky back to 19th now.
And that was a great job by Frisch there. And just ahead of Frisch as well, this group with Austin Johnson and James Holzer, they've done a fantastic job of getting back to Blaze Crawford, who had a solid gap on them, and both of them are now in striking distance in case anything happens with that Ford truck just ahead of them.
Other thing worth noting here that I've noticed looking up at the very front of the field, Taylor Hurst and Andrew Navarro have opened up a gap a little bit to Anthony Burrows, Kwame Scott, Daniel Smallwood, but it's now somewhere in the ballpark of about 0.6 of a second from Navarro in second to Burrows in third. It's the first sizable gap we've really seen amongst anyone in about the top, call it 15, arguably top 20 cars or so. There's a gap there. And then the next biggest gap, you have to go back to Christopher Hill and Hunter Johnson in 21st and 22nd, about 0.5 of a second between those two.
Absolutely. And now going up into the tunnel turn again, I think right now what you're seeing is a lot of tire management going on from everybody in this group. We got, you see with Blaze Crawford right here, everybody around him just really riding in line, and a few guys that are trying to tempt that just a little bit. You see like Johnny Avila, who is trying to get some momentum off that top line, but otherwise, again, I think everybody right now is just trying to manage their stuff for later on in this race.
Justin Malillo, updates from the other race in round 2 taking place this evening. Of course, we've got a field of 70 drivers that compete in 2 races in every round of this second round of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series, and hearing that there is trouble in the other race at Pocono tonight.
Sure is. There is trouble. They are under caution. This is their first caution of the night over on the other, the second server that is going on. It looked like there was a bump that was given poorly to Christopher Pfeffer. He went around. Nobody else hit him. So it was really a team caution, if there ever is one at Pocono. Didn't really look to hit too hard either. But these drivers are all coming down pit road now, which is interesting because they're at lap 20. So I don't know if they're going to be able to stretch the fuel over in this server. But I mean, pitting for tires, so never a bad call. There, as you were saying, there are 70 drivers that are registered between the 2 sessions. 69 of them showed up this week, which is a plus of 2 over 2 weeks ago. We had Kyle Peddle and Blake Neer, who's in our race, show up this week. Still don't know who that mystery 70th driver is, but they've now missed 2 races, and that's a shame, right? You like these guys, they qualify, they go the whole season, and then, you know, they don't even show up for the first 2 races. But it is what it is. We're still under green here. They're under caution there. And I believe Kenny Brady is leading that race right now.
Yeah, field just coming off of pit road in the other race after cautions. And now, while we're sitting here thinking about it, that will become very interesting on strategy, especially so far as the fuel is concerned, because you definitely won't be able to make it all the way with that. You're going to have to pit at some point. So the question then becomes, do you try and short pit and split the remaining laps in half, which would bring you back in right around lap 40 or so? Or do you try and stretch your fuel all the way through your fuel run to about lap 50 and then get probably a can of gas to go the final 10 laps? That'll be a fun one to watch, I think, as you can pay attention to Fireball Talks NASCAR's YouTube channel and keep your eyes peeled on the other race. The second race of round 2 here for the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series in 2023. That gap, by the way, between Navarro and Burrows has grown even larger. We're now up to a full second almost between second and third. And then you've got this pack way in the back that you just saw on your screens. Jake Nichols, Michael P. Frisch, Austin Johnson, Dominic Lukumsky, and John Jenkins all racing for wherever they decide to fit things out in the top 20.
And the general aggression throughout the pack has really started to ramp up within these last 2 to 3 laps. You see in this group, Seth the Merchant making a move to the inside of Brad Wright at the moment. And while we were talking with Justin, you saw just how dicey that group was getting with Michael P. Frisch, Dominic Lukumsky, Austin Johnson as well. I mean, just throughout the pack, it seems like the apprehension to make moves is starting to fade away just a little bit as everybody's starting to try to figure out how to get closer to the front.
Big moves here for about 4th or 5th on the racetrack. Kwame Scott to the outside of Boyd Hogan, and Timmy Pacioli also there, as is Brad Wright. And then you've got some drivers battling for positions a little bit further back as well. Johnny Avila, Daniel Eberhardt, all fighting for spots here amongst the back half of the top 10.
And you see Kwame Scott all over the back bumper of Boyd Hogan right now. Timmy Pacioli got some good bump draft from Brad Wright, who's going to dip out of line with him, send it down to the inside. Going to be side by side between these two, and this middle line for you see Timmy Pacioli running has actually had a fair bit of speed off the corner, and you see that again right here. Spencer Burns going to opt to go with Pacioli.
Well, that's the line we expect to be successful when the Coke Series visits here next Tuesday night. Last year, that was where the speed was. It was not down on the bottom. It was on the outside where you could roll momentum on corner exit and pass the driver trapped underneath. So I'm not surprised that we're starting to see drivers go up there. I don't think the difference in pace and the draft for that matter is as pronounced in these trucks as it would be in the Cup cars, as there was almost contact between Patch and Brad Wright off of the final corner there. But it's certainly something to be mindful of and something worth watching as we keep our eyes on this battle for what would be the 7th position.
You have to be very careful when you're running that inside lane. It's so easy to wash up, and when you're on the outside, your arc tends to take you down to where that bottom lane truck would be. As you see Pacioli going to tag the wall a fair amount there off turn number 1. So you see definitely starting to get dicey here, and this is all around this 7th, 8th range.
Everybody beginning to feel the effects of tire wear potentially. A reminder that no one ahead of a 30th in this field decided to come in on that last stop, save for Jonathan Delaney, our defending winner of this particular race. And he is up to the 23rd position after starting deep in the field. He was 27th on the grid. So a little bit of nice work for Delaney to make moves towards the front of the field. But everybody else that came down pit road had damage in that incident over on the exit of the tunnel turn. All are just trying to hang on. Or James Houghton, who had the incident with Trayton Lapsevich, who is now out of this race over in the final corner. So not really much that we've seen so far as pit strategy goes up to this point, but we're starting to get to that point, and gives us an opportunity to talk to Justin Malillo once again. So, Justin, we know that the window here is pretty tight, about 4 or 5 laps from 28 to 32. Depending on where you're running in this field, where do you try and when do you try to come in with regards to positions in that particular window?
I think that we're going to see a little bit of a split here. Obviously, the guys in the back are probably going to want to get in as early as they can, try and maximize the good tires, try and gain a little bit back. The faster drivers are probably going to wait it out, hopefully not too long for their sake, because if they wait too long, then they're going to be stuck in traffic, and it is going to be interesting. I'm a little bit distracted right now because I'm looking at the other split. things are happening in the other split. It looks like they're back under caution on lap 24. Thomas Hazard has gone around. There was a bit of a checkup. It looks like somebody else got turned before he did. So big crash on the in the short chute in split number 2.
Second caution in that second split. So again, you can keep an eye on Fireball Talks NASCAR on YouTube if you want to see action from the other race of this second round of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series, race number 2 of their 7-race campaign. We're going to take a quick break and be back with more action and pit stops on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere. We've got more action for the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series from Pocono coming your way on the FTF.GG Twitch channel. Welcome back to FTF.GG's coverage of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series from the virtual Pocono Raceway. James Black, Caleb Hoffman, and Justin Malillo down on pit road, and they had picked up business big time here towards the back end of the top 10. You see battles for 20th. They are also 3 wide for the 8th position on the racetrack. Eberhard, Kwame Scott, and Spencer E. Burns fighting for positions with Max Brady close behind.
Yeah, Michael P. Frisch in this group as well. And yes, they have definitely picked it up. The intensity the last 2 or 3 laps has just been a tangible feeling around this racetrack. Everybody wants to go, go, go. And you see that with 3, almost 4 wide for a second there in turn number 1. And it's not only this pack, but throughout the racetrack. I mean, we've seen tons of battles and tons of aggression throughout the field.
Big time moves here as we approach the pit window. Friendly reminder that it's 28 to 32 laps by our calculations under primarily green flag racing. Now, we did have that early yellow, so you might be able to get another lap or 2 out of it. That should shift the window probably back from about 30 to maybe 34 laps, depending on how the drivers made their way around this track under yellow and how much fuel they were able to save. But everybody fighting for position, save for Michael P. Frisch, who I just saw duck off to pit lane out of the corner of my eye. You see him on your screen now. He is the first to come down pit road, along with Brendan Meal and Blake Neer.
Interesting there from Frisch. We just had a super close call with Max Brady and Kwame Scott last time in turns number 3. A little bit of contact between those 2 trucks. They got it figured out for right now, but almost had what would have been our second caution of the night right there.
Would have been very, very big. If you're the front 5, front 6, you're very happy right now. If you're Daniel Everhard on, you are fighting for track position as best you can. They have completely abandoned the idea of trying to stay with the leaders in the draft, and they are fighting for every spot they can get. Big moves here a little bit further back. I think that was Jake Nichols who went to the inside of Dominic Lukomski.
And Nichols right there. John Jenkins as well is another one. And it's interesting right now being side by side as you see more trucks split off onto pit lane. If you're side by side like that, you want to have your options open. If you want to pit, you're going to need to be on that inside. And I believe, yeah, that's going to be Seth the Merchant on pit road. James Holzer among them as well.
Cole Hooper, the other driver that is stopped on lap 31. So we're starting to see some of these drivers from around 20th or so begin to make their way in for pit stops. There's trouble. I saw John.
It's John Jenkins.
Yep, Jenkins got into it. I think that may have been Delaney that got into him.
And that, yes, will bring the caution out as well.
Big break for everybody that hadn't come down pit road yet, but yeah, it was Delaney and Jenkins that made contact. We'll see it here on the replay momentarily, but those two came together out of the tunnel turn, and we'll get a closer look at it here in just a few moments, as you would expect the whole field to come down pit road. But here's a good look. This is the back end of the incident, so you'll see the aftermath of what happened with John Jenkins. Here's a look at the beginning of this. So Delaney in the black and yellow machine, Jenkins in the black and white machine down to the inside of the racetrack. Delaney's got a big run on the high side, and he'll carry it through the exit of the corner, and then he just tries to duck ahead and get down to the inside of the truck ahead of him, and had absolutely no idea that he'd be coming right down into John Jenkins, and Jenkins gets the bump and heads on straight to the inside retaining wall. And that will put a very big dent, both literally and figuratively, in his evening, as all of the leaders get set to come down pit road this time. We will now turn our attention to Justin Melillo, who I believe has some more updates.
No, I've been screaming here, like, throw it to me, throw it to me. I actually love this for Michael P. Frisch, for Seth the Merchant. They pitted and they did not lose a lap. All they have to do here is catch up to the end of the field. Everybody else has to pit, and we're going to have a new leader, and it's going to be Michael P. Frisch. And I love that strategy to pit early, because now this has completely turned this race upside down and given us new leaders, new people at the front of the field. You're going to watch. You're going to see the top 25 all pit, and then Michael P., 26, new leader.
And to Justin's point, they will most likely take the wave around to gain that track position, but
they're not a lap down, James. They didn't lose a lap.
But they'll still be waved in front of everybody else, so they'll start up front, like you were saying. But the flip side of that, Caleb, is that they will have either a lap or two older tires than everybody else.
I don't know. I think I'm with Justin on this one. I mean, when Michael P. Frisch came in, I was thinking in the back of my mind with how aggressive that they were being, that it would be a good idea to come in on the early end of it, just in case we did get a caution. And lo and behold, that is exactly what happened. And so I'm a big fan of Frisch and DeMerchant here. I mean, they were running outside the top 10, right in that 11th to 12th range, and now they're going to have a lot less fighting to do starting up at the front here.
But can you hang on to the track position? And or by extension, how much does tire wear matter? I think that's a very big question we're going to find an answer to here in maybe 30-ish laps or so. 28, I suppose, looking at this. Though we do have the possibility of green-white checkers if we get a late yellow flag, or yellow flag, rather. 3 green-white checker attempts if we need them. If.
And it's going to be interesting for sure. I mean, with the trend that we've been seeing in this race, I think it is very possible that we do go into that overtime bucket. But for Michael P. Frisch right now, I'm just such a fan of how this has turned out for him. Again, that lap extra, yeah, is going to come into account for sure. But I think, if you are a Michael P. Frisch in this scenario, you'd much rather have that extra lap of wear and be starting on the front row rather than, having to crawl your way up from 12th when passing has been so hard here today. The thing I'm interested here is, again, how aggressive are we on this restart? This is, for all we know, going to be one of the last restarts of the day. So, how aggressive are you? Do you send it 3 or 4 wide, just trying to make up as much ground as possible?
how much do you want to risk? I think is the easy way to summarize what you just said, because there are certainly going to be opportunities, especially off the restart here, and with as few laps as we have left to go now, in particular, it does make me wonder, Caleb, whether or not we may start seeing a rash of yellow flags. Sometimes that happens here at Pocono, and you usually get one or the other. It's either a long green flag race that just goes all the way, or you get one yellow flag, and then one leads to 2, then to 3, and then to 4, then to 5, and you get the race.
Yeah, I will say my hunch tells me we're not done, and I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a wreck on this restart, but we saw how racy they were getting, about 22, 23 laps into that run when tire wear started to come into play and everybody sliding around this racetrack. I think if we don't see a wreck on this restart, we'll probably see one about 4 or 5 to go, if I had to guess, if my intuition is correct.
About a half lap away from the restart, and it will be on Michael P. Frisch. Let's recap those who stayed out here and managed to get the track position like Justin talked about. Frisch, Blake Neer, Seth the Merchant, Brendan Meal, Cole Hooper, and James Holzer are the 6 drivers that pitted early before the yellow flag and passed everyone else, while the leaders came in under that yellow. So Andrew Navarro is tops amongst the bunch that just came in. He'll restart 7th, then Hurst, then Hogan, then Smallwood in 10th, and then Wright, Never Hurt, and so on and so forth. It's about, call it 26 or 5-ish cars that came down under this yellow, but all eyes on the 6 that managed to come down early, and whether or not their strategy call will pay off big the way that Justin Melillo believes it will. Here we go, green flag restart. Not a clean jump here, and somebody spun the tires a little bit further back, and that will cause immediate chaos in the midfield.
Yeah, they are 4, almost 5 wide back here going into turn number 1. Mainly eyes on this group of Brad Wright, Boyd Hogan, Daniel Smallwood, Max Brady going to try to make it 5 wide. I don't know if they're going to have room for it.
Can they hold it together all the way through this corner and make it to the long pond straight? No, they can't. There they go into the fence, and there they go wrecking. Big jump down the back straightaway, and the caution is out once again.
And Daniel Smallwood is going to be the one that comes out. The worst case scenario for him. I believe everybody else was actually able to get through it. I thought that was going to be a lot bigger than it ended up being, but looks like Smallwood's going to get the worst of it here, and we are under caution once again.
You asked the question, Caleb, whether or not they could keep it together all the way through the corner. No, they could not. As you see the initial restart there, I couldn't tell who spun the tires, but somebody did not get going on the initial jump there. That was very clear right from the off. And then you see everybody fan out here in 1 and 2. You see them go 4 wide and then try and back it down, and then they come up off the corner. There was contact with Smallwood and the trucks ahead of him, and he ends up getting the ricochet shot into the outside retaining wall.
And again, you see just how Smallwood got the worst of that, and I think that's just natural. You'll see this is all just a result of the stack up on the restart. The leaders start snaking just a little bit, and that just groups everybody back together. And you see Smallwood initially goes all the way down almost to that inside wall, and they're already 4 wide. You're going to see the truck of Max Brady try to push it underneath Smallwood, and there's just not room for that here at Pocono.
So some drivers in chat blaming Michael P. Frisch for that stack up on the restart. Others looking at Blake Neer, thinking that it was the front 2 that caused it. Tough to tell exactly given how many players were involved in that, but at the end of it, Smallwood gets the worst of it. And to be honest, I'm surprised, especially given how the track funnels right there at the exit of the Old Trenton Speedway complex, that first corner or set of corners, depending on what philosophy you believe in. But that tends to be one of the narrowest parts of the racetrack. That and then the exit of the tunnel turn. And usually when you have someone wreck on corner exit there, you end up seeing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drivers involved in the accident. There were a few that got the fence, but I was surprised that Smallwood was the only one that really went sideways.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, to only have 1 truck wreck out of that entire group, I mean, I thought for sure Boyd Hogan and Brad Wright were going to go around in the field. Kwame Scott, I know, made considerable contact, Spencer Burns as well. So for only one truck to come out of that really with big damage is nothing short of a miracle here.
And to Justin's point, this also means less laps for those in the back of the field to try and drive up to catch the drivers at the front. And it works out very, very well for a Frisch, a Neer, a Neal. Just looking here, Taylor Hirsch was able to jump to 6th. He now is the first of the drivers that came down pit road under the yellow. In the meantime, while we have a moment under yellow, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will be back with more action from Pocono. You're watching coverage of the eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series Round 2 on the FTF.GG Twitch channel. Welcome back to coverage of the eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series round number 2 here from Pocono Raceway. This is race number 2 of round number 2 on the FTF.GG Twitch channel. James Pike, Caleb Hoffman, and our pit reporter Justin Malillo ready to bring you the final 20-plus laps of action from the tricky triangle, where we had a yellow split-up pit strategy some 5 laps ago, and now it's all eyes on our leaders. It's Michael P. Frisch, Blake Neer, Brendan Neal, Seth the Merchant, James Holzer, and Cole Hooper trying to maintain their track position ahead of Andrew Navarro, Taylor Hurst, and a whole host of others who have been pacing this field up to this point. We shall see how it pans out, whether or not we get a clean race to the end or whether or not we get more yellows. A little bit of the bumping again that we saw on the restart. That's twice in a row now where there was a little bit of swerving from both Neer and Frisch. So I have a feeling some drivers a little bit further in the back will not be happy with that, but we continue to go racing off into turn 1.
3 wide once again, and really got to watch out. Everybody super bunched up for the time being. We'll have to see if they survive. I think they will here. Good job by everybody.
Single file this time and not as chaotic as it was last time by. Still 2 and 3 wide through the tunnel turn as they begin to figure out who gets what track position and where drivers end up going. It's Navarro, then Holzer, then Neal down on the bottom, and then they continue to roll here all the way up to the fence coming out of this final complex. Modeled after the Milwaukee Mile, one of the flattest pieces of racetrack you are going to find anywhere. Banking level, minimal to say the least. 6 degrees over in the final corner.
And you see quickly here, single file. You got quite a few still battles on this racetrack, but on these straightaways for sure, everybody not messing around much, and everybody will have to try to slot back into line as they head down your first backstretch here. Really, main battle I have my eyes on is around this 12th position. Blaze Crawford, Johnny Avila going in to the tunnel turn. Right behind them, a group as well. But Johnny Avila has been so aggressive here these last few laps.
Avila continuing to try and fight his way through the field. He's at 11th now. Meanwhile, big sin there just a little bit further back. I believe that may have been, was that Max Brady? Indeed it was, who just slid right up in front of Brendan Meal and stuffed it in front of him. Big block there. Look at that move just a little bit further back. There's trouble on the main straightaway, and the yellow flag is out once again. This time it's James Houghton for the second time tonight and Alex Kalanick.
And that felt inevitable right there. And I think it was a little bit of contact between Kalanick and Spencer Burns that put us under his fourth caution of the day. And you'll see it right here. Spencer Burns says he has a lane right here and just got crushed by Kalanick. And I don't know. It's definitely a tight squeeze, but he was able to fit it there. And I think maybe a slight squeeze from Kalanick there.
It's tough to tell with the camera angles that we have, difficult to see, but what we do know is that there was eventually contact with that truck up on the high side of Spencer E. Burns, and all of a sudden, yeah, I'm wondering maybe if a little bit of phantom contact might have been involved there too. But Kalanick is the one that goes sideways down the straight. And did a nice job of rolling, I would assume, out of the clutch and getting the thing to reverse, and then managed to loop it around and get it righted. But down track position, and now with a little bit of damage. And then James Houghton, second time he's been involved in an incident. Remember, he got caught up coming out of that final corner with Trayton Lapsovich earlier, and now he's part of the yellow for the second time this evening.
And I don't know, I remember a few cautions ago when, we were talking about not wanting to find ourselves in a cycle of cautions, and I think we might be on pace for that, not only with this contact between Burns and Kalanick, but I mean, we saw ahead of them Johnny Avila, making big moves, and Cole Hooper had a great block on Avila. But that type of racing, will lead to a few more cautions than if you were just riding around this thing single file. We've seen just throughout the field how aggressive that they have been ever since about this halfway point where, you don't have to pit anymore. So, every restart, you're going to have to take as much as you can get. And I think that's what's playing into a lot of these instances of contact.
An interesting nugget here from Spencer Burns, who looked up and he said, "No, sorry," in game chat. And I would assume that's directed at Alex Kalanick. So that's an intriguing one. I would imagine that Kalanick probably feels the same way, so there may not exactly be a meeting of the minds on that. But look at this. More drivers towards the back of the field coming down pit road for service.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have nothing to lose at this point, then 4 tires and fuel and maybe a little bit of extra damage repair. I know that's for guys like Kwame Scott, who have been involved in a few tonight, just trying to get some damage repaired and hopefully improve the longevity of your truck here. But yeah, I'd say if you're in this top 10, maybe even top 15, you wouldn't even consider pitting, just with how valuable track position has been so far here tonight.
Michael P. Frisch, the one in control of things here. And Justin, how do you feel? Well, actually, no, I'll ask you, how do you feel now that everything that you said basically has come to fruition so far in this race, and that the folks you managed to pit just before the yellow have been able to hold on the track position?
I mean, there's still a long race to go. I feel pretty good about it right now. Michael P's been putting on a master class of snaking down the front straightaway during these few green flag laps that we've had. But we still do have, another 17 laps to go when we get the restart, and I just feel like everybody's trying to get everything that we can get, and it's going to be better for Frisch and Near and Merchant the more cautions we keep having, because that's just going to keep Taylor Hurst, who's now up to 4th, but it's going to keep Hurst from possibly getting back up there to the front.
Hirsch, for what it's worth, still leading the cars that came in, or rather trucks that came in for service on the main strategy, as it were. 10 laps now officially on his tires. He sits in the 4th position. Also, for what it's worth, if we were worried about fuel economy, I don't think, and Justin, you can confirm this for me, but I think with the yellow flag laps that we've had, these drivers are probably good, not only for the scheduled end of this race, but at least a green-white checker or two, I would think.
Absolutely. Everybody's done pitting for fuel at this point. If you're pitting, you're either pitting to fix damage or to you're in the back and need tires for whatever reason, but you don't want to be pitting from this point forward for sure.
The lights are out on the pace car. Green flag will come with 16 laps to go here at Pocono. Working our way through lap 44, coming to lap 45 of the scheduled 60 that will make up the distance tonight. Now, again, worth noting that we may end up with just a few green-white checker laps. We do have 3 opportunities for overtime if we need them. And that is a big if, but right now, Caleb Hoffman, just off the way things have been trending the last 10 laps or so, I'd say it's probably more likely than not that we will.
Yeah, and if we need to use more than 2, I think is where, you know, fuel strategy once again comes into question for some of these leaders. I think they definitely need to be cognizant of it at this point, because like you said, the last 10 laps, we are definitely trending that way. So maybe these leaders, you know, take a little more precaution, a little more eager to use that draft, use the clutch under our caution laps, but we'll just have to wait and see, because we very well could go green from this point.
So this gets fun now in a very, very big way. Entering the final 15 laps of this race, second one of 7 in round 2 for the 2023 eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series. Frisch with that trademark little wiggle, bobble, and weave to get going once again. And big time fan out there, look at that 4 and 5 wide, a little bit further back in the field, as Frisch will sweep up high to arc properly down into turn 1 and maintain the race lead.
3, almost 4 wide once again going through turn number 1. Johnny Avila, Cole Hooper, kind of the bookends of this group. Blaze Crawford right in the middle. Car gonna get super sideways. Great save from Crawford, and we stay green for now, but still not out of the thick of it.
Will they make it through the tunnel turn? They are about 3, 4, 5 wide, a little bit further back, and somehow they survived up there, and then they bounced sideways. And somehow, I think they hung on to it. Blake Neer, I think, is the one that lost all the track position, but we are still green flag racing 3/4 of the way through this first lap after the restart.
And still, that contact is grouped everybody back together. Timmy Pacioli's in the wall. Lukovsky as well as they fan out in the back. No caution as of now. Kolinix makes contact with the inside wall as well.
Oh, Kolinix took a hard shot there to the inside wall. I couldn't tell where the contact came from, but he just stuffed it in the fence and stuffed it again. That might be race over for him outright. He's just going to stop and I think take the tow. Meanwhile, up front, they have strung out amongst the top 7 or 8, and it is then right around, call it, Daniel Smallwood and Jonathan Delaney racing for position 15th, 16th, 17th.
Yeah, it's still super aggressive back here. Daniel Smallwood, Delaney going to tag the wall just a little bit. You see further ahead, one truck jumps out of line. That's Hunter Johnson. And he's now to the inside of Johnny Avila, who's trying to make this high lane work, as he has been the last few times. One truck wiggling ahead of him. That's Chris Hill. And he's going to regather it, and we stay green.
Frisch, DeMerchant, Navarro, Eberhardt, Hurst, Holzer. It's a mix of drivers, but Michael P. Frisch is taking advantage of the clean air. Cole Hooper leading this next back here, and you see just how nutty it's going to get. Look at Avila going all the way upstairs to try and get a good run and get alongside Chris Hill.
And you'll see right here, looks like everybody going to get single filed out now, and maybe we can take a breath of fresh air.
Chris Hill put a very big block on Johnny Avila there coming out of the Trenton Complex last time by. With 15 laps to go, Johnny showed him a little bit of love. If we get to the final 5, I don't know if he's lifting anywhere near as much as he did. You see Avila all the way on the high side of the racetrack, just a little bit further back. It's Hunter Johnson down to the bottom, and then just ahead, it's Cole Hooper, Chris Hill, and Brendan Meal racing for position.
And blocks have gotten a lot more aggressive. You're starting to see trucks jump out of line big time a little further up in the running order. Seth the Merchant, Andrew Navarro trying to crawl his way back up towards the front. Now into second position is Navarro, trying to chase down Michael P. Frisch for the lead now, and he's got drafting help from behind from DeMerchant.
Big move there. Look at Taylor Hurst making pass on Daniel Eberhardt in the tunnel turn. That puts him now in the 4th position, trying to mount the charge and go catch Andrew Navarro, who is now up to 2nd and is on the rear bumper of Michael P. Frisch, and with 3-lap fresher tires than Frisch has. We talked about whether or not the short pitters could maintain the track position. So far, they've still got the race lead, but what can Andrew Navarro do here?
And you see, I mean, Navarro is chasing down the number 58 machine as they go into turn number 1, following suit for the time being, but I don't know if it'll stay that way for very long as they go down the backstretch once again.
Here comes Andrew Navarro once again fighting for position, continuing to race his way up towards the front of this field and get back to the lead that he was fighting for throughout the opening 30 laps of this race before the green flags gave way to all the yellows. He is 1 truck away from going back to the point, but he's also got some company beginning to close in because he hasn't been able to make the move on Michael P. Frisch, and that's allowed Seth the Merchant and Taylor Hurst to close in and potentially make this a 4-truck battle for the race lead.
And right now, you see that this first group of about, call it 15 cars, it has really started to settle down, but further in the back right now, we're still not done. As you see, there goes Navarro underneath Frisch. Coming out of turn number 1, Frisch going to use that high side momentum to try to retain his track position. I just don't know if he's going to be able to hold off Navarro as they go into the tunnel turn.
Does Navarro have the ability to side draft and send it in deep to complete the pass on Michael P. Frisch? This is the battle for the race lead, and Frisch is going to give way. Andrew Navarro back to the front of this field with 11 laps to go, and Taylor Hurst now has a very big job on his hands to try and catch Frisch, get second, and potentially fight Navarro for the win.
Hurst going to move past DeMerchant right there. Had a great push from Eberhardt that moved him into the 3rd position. A little bit of contact between Eberhardt and DeMerchant right behind him, but here enters Max Brady as well into the picture. This all happening for P3.
A massive fight for P3, which is everything Navarro in particular, I think, will want to see. Now Hurst, with that big drive on the bottom, is able to clear everybody else, and he will begin his charge on Michael P. Frisch. But what kind of gap can Andrew Navarro open up before Hurst is able to get to Frisch and fight for second? That could tell us everything we need to know about what kind of race we may see in the final 10 laps.
This will be interesting for sure. Eberhardt still to the inside of DeMerchant. My eyes have been glued to this group, and I don't know with how close this is going to get, and I think with the tire wear coming into account, we might not be done in terms of cautions. You see big stack up Max Brady almost gets into the back of Seth the Merchant right there, and just one little slip up like that could lead us to a caution as you see Eberhardt jumping into line.
Everybody getting just a little bit more aggressive with those cuts in line to try and make it. Now Eberhardt immediately up against the fence, as are about the next 5 or 6 trucks behind him, as DeMerchant is going to arc back down to get that wide sweeping entry into turn 1. Meanwhile, Michael P. Frisch has not left the rear bumper of Andrew Navarro. Navarro's not been able to get away, but Taylor Hurst has been able to separate himself from that group led by Seth the Merchant. So now he's on a bit of an island, but he's solidly in possession of 3rd.
And Michael P. Frisch has done a masterful job of staying right on the back bumper of the Andrew Navarro machine. And Michael P. Frisch, I don't know, he might not be done just yet. You see Navarro opening up just a little bit, but really on the other half of the racetrack, the front stretch onto turns 1 and 2 is really where Frisch has been able to make up his time.
Frisch just going to sit in the tire tracks in Navarro. Hurst is beginning to make the charge as well. Regardless, if he can maintain the track position, what a masterful move, as Justin Malillo called out in his pit reports earlier for Michael P. Frisch. Started 21st, second right now. And a lot of the drivers towards the back end of the top 10 in particular have had some crazy drives.
Yeah, not only working their way up, but just keeping the truck underneath them has been a challenge enough. I mean, we've seen plenty of trucks start to step out on the exit of turns number 1, turns number 2. We've seen a few trucks slap the wall. So been a master class from a lot of these guys up at the front of not only driving around these other trucks, but just manhandling this racetrack.
Navarro's still there. Frisch only back by a tenth. Hurst has been able to reel both of them in, and it's now down to 0.2 of a second. And between our top three, just about half a second. And look at Seth DeMerchant. He's been able to split away from Daniel Eberhardt and company just a little bit as well. So now he may be able to join this fight for the race lead, but Frisch is not letting go of Navarro.
And again, this is where Frisch has been able to make up his time, and you'll see he'll stick right in the tire tracks. As they go into the tunnel turn is where Navarro's been breaking away from Frisch just a little bit. We'll just have to see if Frisch has any accommodations that he can make to try to negate some of that run. And you see just right in the tire tracks and really on exit, this is where Navarro will run away just a little bit.
Exit of the tunnel turn to just the line in general through this Milwaukee Bio complex. He's able to cut down and really attack that apron, as is Taylor Hurst, and that's where you're seeing the gap come in. However, with the draft, Frisch is able to gain most of that, if not all of it, up, as they thought that Navarro was going to duck, and then Navarro decided to stay in line. So that may have cost them a little bit of draft here, but Frisch still just hanging on, holding down that second position and coming towards 5 laps to go this time by.
And Frisch has really been trying to roll it through the center, had to get on the brakes because he was so close to Navarro there. On board with Michael P. Frisch now. Another thing to monitor here is Taylor Hurst. If Hurst gets up into this battle, not only that additional draft is going to be into play here as they go through the tunnel turn, but he might try to make a few sneaky moves of his own as they go through the tunnel turn once again.
That was a great run. Oh, I think Frisch got the fence. Maybe it was close. I don't know if he actually caught it all that much, but it was enough to unsettle the rear end of his truck just a bit. So that might draw Hurst into the battle for P2, as Frisch beginning to slide a little bit off the rear tires. Navarro as well. Frisch beginning to follow the snake, as is Hurst, as is DeMerchant. Everybody there just trying to maintain the line, much like you see in IndyCar at Indianapolis. Is it'll be Navarro down to the bottom, then to the top, and now back to the inside again. 5 laps to go, and Frisch has closed the gap in with the draft just a bit.
I think that's a short-term gain for Andrew Navarro, but long-term, I think that's going to rope Taylor Hurst into this battle. And if you're Andrew Navarro, you want Frisch to get as much of a buffer on Hurst as possible, so it's just a 1v1 here. Whereas I think now with Frisch having hit the wall, Hurst is inching in about a tenth after he made that contact. So 5 to go right now. I think we're going to see a 3, maybe even 4 horse race for this win.
Hurst continuing to reel it in. It's now 0.3 of a second between your top 3 drivers, and DeMerchant only about 0.4 of a second back of Hurst. So it's not necessarily that far between those two. Down to the inside goes Navarro again. Frisch will give chase, as will Hurst, as will pretty much everybody in the top 10. Now Frisch is going to get right up along the wall and get a bigger arc than Navarro might be able to entering turn 1. Does that change the way the math works here on corner exit? Frisch will exit lower. It'll be a straighter drive for him onto the Long Pond straight, and we'll see whether or not he can draw even or alongside Navarro entering the tunnel turn.
He made up a lot of time in turn number 1, and you see that momentum that he's gained going into the tunnel turn. Will he dip it to the inside of Navarro? Gonna bide his time for right now and still stick behind that number 42 machine, but I think Frisch has his strategy figured out for how he's gonna try to attack Navarro for the lead as they go into 3.
Navarro's been able to take that high entry into the tunnel turn and really make it work to his advantage. That's been the difference so far. He's been able to open up a gap because Frisch has been entering the tunnel turn lower than Navarro with the runs that he's been able to get. Does he try and pull something here down into turn 1? Gets up high, decides to sit in it. He's going to enter lower than Navarro. Should be another straighter exit out of this complex and down the Long Pond Straight, and it could set up for yet another attempt at the lead in the tunnel turn once again.
I think you're seeing great racecraft from Michael P. Frisch right now. Remember, on those older tires, I think that he knows that he only has one shot at trying to make this pass for the lead, and if he gets passed back, then his race for the win's going to be over. So right now, I think you're just seeing Michael P. Frisch bide his time, try to stick in the tire tracks of the 42 and be here at the end. But as soon as I say that, into turn number 3, here comes Frisch for the lead.
So here's his attempt. Michael P. Frisch down to the inside. Navarro's going to get the run on corner exit and should draw even with Frisch down the straightaway. What can Frisch do to side draft? Does that end up helping Taylor Hurst at all? It's Navarro that's still there, but Frisch with a nice job to pull that Toyota
they're
back.
wrecking behind him on the front stretch, and that's going to bring out the caution and send us to overtime.
Oh my goodness, how this could change strategy all over the place. This is the last thing that the leaders wanted to see, because now you've got the option to come down and take tires and maybe, just maybe, steal win out of this. Justin Malillo will come straight to you. If you are in this position, what do? You
got to stay out at this point. If you pit, everybody else is staying out, and you're just going to lose the race. It is the toughest position to be in right now because, oh man, I want those tires so bad. All these guys are screaming they want tires, but I tell you, I've seen so many races lost this year because of people pitting and losing all that track position. It is so hard to be in that position right now. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine if anybody pits here that there's going to be a group of people that stay out, and it's just going to ruin it.
How many people stay out? And this truly is one of those cases, Caleb, where I can see this entirely just depending on how things shake up. As you see the contact there, Blake Neer getting a big chunk of the damage down the front straightaway. But I've seen situations like this where sometimes it's 5 people that stay out, sometimes it's 15 people that stay out. Contact there with Spencer E. Burns, and yep, Neer right in the fence. This is about as classic of a game time decision as you're going to find in eNASCAR.
Yeah, and you see that contact definitely warranted a caution. There's Blake Neer right there. He and Spencer Burns getting together. But I think Justin's right on the money here. If you're Andrew Navarro and Michael P. Frisch, of course you want tires in this situation. Of course you want that extra fuel for those overtime attempts. You're almost pushing your window to the max it can go, right about that 27 to 30 lap mark. But the problem you run into here is if you are Andrew Navarro and you decide to come in, then everybody else behind you is going to stay out, and you're going to be restarting in about that 15th to 20th range, and there's going to be no time for you to make up all those spots back. Now, if everybody collectively decides to come down here, then for sure you want tires and fuel. I just don't think they're going to be afforded that opportunity.
To Justin's point, I think conventional wisdom would probably say to stay out, but is that what we end up getting? Where do the people go?
Oh, Frisch got him.
Frisch, I don't know if he got or not, and it's a tough split. Frisch is the first one to come down pit road. Navarro stays out, and it's about the top 10, I think, that are going to stay out here with everything on the line.
And we have contact on pit road as well. One car just got turned around. Hunter Johnson.
Okay. So now we get the opportunity to reset here. One truck there backing into its stall, trying to sort itself out. So a good look here at how this all played out.
And you see this contact on pit road here, and I'm not sure about this for Michael P. Frisch. I mean, yeah, the tires, they're going to be important, and you see it's Spencer Burns once again, a little bit of contact, but I think if we get more than one caution here, then Frisch in the long term is definitely going to be set up better. It just depends on if we get that caution or not. Nonetheless, I just want to make sure you Have you caught your breath? Because I think you're going to need all of it here on this restart, Pike.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. I think it's also worth noting that we are under our first of what could potentially be 3 green-white checkers. So this will count as number 1. Everybody came in a while back. Yeah, so we should be good on fuel for all 3 restarts. It's just a matter of, you know, can this top... It's officially the top 14 drivers that stayed out. So let's look at where they are in relation to when they came down pit road. For all of Navarro in first, Hurst in second, Brady in fourth, Crawford in fifth, Eberhardt in seventh, and Delaney and Pacioli in 10th and 12th. They came down 29 laps ago. DeMerchant is third, Holzer is sixth, and then Brendan Meal is 8th. They all came down 31 or 32 laps ago. Then you've got a handful of drivers that came down 19 laps ago. That includes Kwame Scott in 9th, Brandon Hanna in 11th, and Jesse Kaplan in 13th. Then Boyd Hogan came down pit road 11 laps ago. He's his 14th, and Cole Hooper and Jake Nichols are the drivers that took 2 tires and came down pit road under this yellow. They respectively are 15th and 17th, and Frisch is tops amongst the drivers that took 4 tires, and he is currently scored in 16th. Then Christopher Hill, and then you've got Johnny Avila, Daniel Smallwood, Anthony Burrows, everybody back there all taking 4. So it's how big of a charge can you make through the middle of the pack? How nutty is this mid-pack going to be? And if you're Andrew Navarro, can you hold off Taylor Hurst? If you're Taylor Hurst, can you take advantage of the track position that you now have after fighting to get it back all throughout the second half of this race? Now you're here. Can you do something with it?
Catch your breath here. If you're Michael P. Frisch, I think he's going to be one of the most aggressive. He knows that he has the speed to be up front on those 4 fresh tires. It's going to be a crazy one here. As you see on board real fast, you see starting on the outside. This is going to be wild, though, with our first attempt at eNASCAR overtime.
Also, I see Donovan Strauss panicking in chat, so the answer to his question is Michael P. Frisch was the leader but came down pit road for tires, and about 15 other drivers stayed out, so that's why he's buried in the middle of the field. Green-white checker attempt number 1 underway. Good start for Navarro, and already they are 3, 4, 5 wide down the front stretch well before we get to the first turn.
Fanning out 4, almost 5 wide here on the front stretch of Pocono. We'll see if they get it figured out going into turn number 1. Right now, it seems like they will, but anything can change here as you see Johnny Avila trying to send it up through the middle of this pack. Michael P. Frisch just ahead of him as well is on a tear underneath Kwame Scott as they go down the backstretch.
No incidents through that first corner down to the tunnel turn. Will they keep it all in one piece? Big gap here for Andrew Navarro, who's well clear of everybody else. They are 4 and 5 wide. Third and back, and there's one truck sideways and up towards the fence and in it. I couldn't tell who it is. It's one of the Altus trucks as they all fan out to try and avoid that incident in the middle of turn 3. Will this hold?
There's
all
no
the way
way.
Through the corner? Some way, somehow. No,
they're wrecking ahead.
Further up, Seth DeMerchant goes sideways, and it's a massive wreck.
Oh, it's the big one. Oh, my goodness. It's every truck in the field.
I don't even know where to begin with that, truthfully.
That's what we thought we were going to see in turn 1 earlier, and that's when everybody is just super aggressive, 3, 4 wide throughout the field. You get packed up together, and that's what'll happen here at Pocono. But what good news this is for Michael P. Frisch, who was on a tear on that restart. He gets another chance to do it once again, all the way up to P4 from P16 on that restart.
Shades of Dale Earnhardt at Talladega in the fall of 2000. Anybody with that? Just a little bit?
I mean, why? Look at this pack here. I mean, how are they going to survive?
You see, you say that. The irony of it is that this incident started
ahead of them.
Started ahead of all of them. Right, exactly, with DeMerchant. And I couldn't tell off the top of my head who the other truck was that was involved in that to start this off. But, again, they make contact.
I think it was Frisch.
No, I think it was James Holzer, actually. But
it was Frisch.
Or was it Frisch? No, it was Frisch who got into DeMerchant and sent DeMerchant up the racetrack into Holzer, and that started off the fuse that just detonated this whole wreck and took out about 10 to 15 trucks in the process.
Yeah, and I think Frisch was there inside 3 wide, makes that contact with DeMerchant, and yeah, puts DeMerchant up into Holzer, and then everybody just packed up there. I mean, there's just nowhere to go. The track is almost blocked at that point when Kwame Scott gets collected, Blaze Crawford as well, and that entire pack just piles in.
Some drivers coming down pit road for service. Also, spectators in server chat saying, wreck everyone so you win the race. W moment. So I can sense the sarcasm dripping there from that one, Caleb.
Yeah, and you know that there are people that are not happy with that move from Michael P. Frisch, but I mean, you're trying to win the race at this point if you're Frisch on those 4 fresh tires, and I think that's just a natural byproduct of what'll happen here in the second overtime now. I think what we have to focus our sights on now is it's going to be a battle between Navarro, Hurst, Brady, trying to hold off the 4 fresh tires of Michael P. Frisch. I mean, you know these top 3 they're committed at this point, not going to come in. I think that's now the landscape of where we're sitting at.
Let's also give a shout out to Johnny Avila, who also took fresh tires. He was up towards the front amongst the drivers that pitted, now up in the 5th position after starting 18th. This is about the highest he's run all night long, and he's got fresh tires. If Frisch is going to lead the charge amongst those with the 4 fresh Goodyears, Avila probably is going to play Robin to Batman here.
Yeah, and Avila, we've seen him all night, not afraid to put that truck wherever it needs to be on the high side in the middle 3 wide. And it's worked out for him so far, sitting up in the top 5 as well. But another guy I have to commend here is Timmy Pacioli running in the 9th position. He was involved in one of those wrecks earlier, got cycled all the way to the back, and he's just been patient, bided his time, and finds himself now inside the top 10 running 9th here on the second overtime attempt. So.
All right, here we go. This will be the second of 3 attempts at overtime. So if we do not get the white flag this time, or rather, I guess next time by, if we're going to be technical about it, we will try one more time for a green flag finish. And I suppose to reset the rules, we'll take the green flag next time by. If we get the yellow before we get the white, we will throw another caution, take one more attempt at a checkered flag, and see where it lands. If we get the white flag before we get the yellow, we are racing. And the next flag after the white flag will end the race.
Yeah, and you thought our previous restarts were wild. This one is going to be even wilder if I had to, try to predict what's going on here. Frisch, once again, on this outside. We've seen how aggressive he's been on these starts, but Johnny Avila is going to have a great shot as well. And I don't know, Andrew Navarro's been dominant all night. I just don't think these tires are going to be able to hold up for him, but we will just have to wait and see. I think this is going to be the wildest restart we've seen all day.
And for what it's worth, in the other race, over on the Fireball Talks NASCAR YouTube channel, they too are under green, white, checker conditions. So you haven't really missed much of anything, depending on where you are. Everybody just trying to find that one window of green flag racing that may carry us to the checkered flag.
All right, get your final breaths in here, Pike. This is gonna be crazy.
We shall see how this all pans out and how nutty this will get, or not. Who knows? We never know with these green, white checkers, but what we do know is we've got fresh tires in 4th and 5th in the form of Frisch and Avila, but it's Andrew Navarro who will get the jump on Taylor, Hurst, and go. Immediately, you see the shuffling a little bit further back. Everybody, once again, 4, 5 wide, already making big blocks before they get to turn 1. Here comes Avila to the inside, looking for the spot on Max Brady, entering the first corner.
And you see fanning out 4, even 5 wide. That was Daniel Smallwood and Matt Wright. Or Brad Wright, excuse me. Here comes Michael P. Frisch to the inside of Hurst and Brady. Johnny Avila did a fantastic job, and we're wrecking once again on the backstretch.
Big wreck in the back of the field that tore up about 5 or 6 trucks there. And one more attempt at a green-white checker, and it is going to be Johnny Avila starting to the outside of Andrew Navarro to try and race for the win at Pocono, as you see the mangled machines and sheet metal begin to creep their way back around the racetrack.
And you'll see what happens here once again, just all 4 and 5 wide. And we've seen various times tonight that doesn't work here in turn 1, yet they tried it again. And that's what happens, is what feels like half the field wrecks off of turn number 1. I just want to focus real fast on Johnny Avila on that restart. You'll see another alternate angle of this wreck right here. Just everybody getting stacked together, and Seth the Merchant gets tagged in it at the very last second. A tough break for him because he's been running up inside that top 5 all night.
So this is a little bit of a weird one because it's a chain reaction. So I think this starts with Austin Johnson getting into Kevin Champagne, who came up into Johnson on the exit of the corner. And then Champagne got loose off of the contact with Johnson, who had nowhere to go. And when he tried to correct, he came down into Jesse Kaplan. And Kaplan was the first truck that actually went sideways, nowhere for Johnson to go. There was Dominic Lukomsky, who just tried to full throttle it through this mess and got swept up in it immediately. Hunter Johnson got damaged. Seth the Merchant involved again. Matthew Bear stuck with nowhere to go. I don't know if Delaney was able to sneak through it, but Delaney just got through all that. Blake Neer, I saw, got caught up in this. So lots of trucks torn up at the end of this. But the story here at the front, Johnny Avila and Michael P. Frisch are going to have an opportunity to race for the win and pluck this lead away from Andrew Navarro on fresh tires. You get shades of Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton in Abu Dhabi in 2021. This time it's Avila and Brady, or rather Frisch, playing the role of Verstappen, and Navarro trying to hold off everyone else on the older tires.
Yeah, and I mean, Johnny Avila, you couldn't do a better job on that restart. He was starting on that inside, got double file ahead of him, and he made it 3 wide to the inside and just made it about as clean a pass as you can get onto turn number 1. Down the first back straightaway, slotted himself into second when that caution came out. I mean, just masterful stuff from Johnny Avila. And if he goes to victory lane here tonight, it's going to be off the back of that move.
Avila with that huge charge. He was, what, 17th, 18th, I think, on the restart after they pitted, and has come all the way up to second. He incidentally started in 18th at the beginning of the night as well. So it is best case scenario for Avila, and could be a huge points night for him as well. This is the kind of finish that makes the way this round ends potentially very unpredictable, because it's a lot of these drivers, where they finish is not going to reflect their way, or the way their races went.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, you saw Seth the Merchant was caught up in that, and there's a few different cases of that where there have been guys that have been up inside that top 10, top 5 all night that are just not going to have the runs to show for it due to these last few laps and the big wrecks that we've seen. And it's really unfortunate for them, but that's just road to pro for you. You gotta be consistent here, and one bad finish, it could be the difference between you making contender and you being on the outside looking in.
One more lap before our final restart. For what it's worth, the other race is just now going green on what I believe is their second green-white checker attempt. So we'll keep an eye on that here as they continue to pace around Pocono in our race for their third and final attempt at a green-white checker.
And this one, this is going to be the last one of the night no matter what here, and that definitely amps up the aggression as well, especially for Johnny Avila, Michael P. Frisch, who has the opportunity here to do what Avila did last time by. If I had to guess here, I think this is going to be an Avila v. Frisch showdown, and I think it's going to be Frisch trying to crawl up to chase Avila down here in the final 2 laps. And it's certainly going to be something as he tries to navigate around everybody else up inside this top 5 on the older tires.
For what it's worth, as soon as they have gone green flag racing in our other race here, currently going on in round 2, they have gone back on a yellow. Ryan Hill got right hooked into the fence, and they were properly 5 wide entering the tunnel turn, which no mathematician I am, but I would imagine more often than not, someone ends up wrecked in a situation like that. And it continues a bad start to round 2 for Ryan Hill, who was part of the show 2 weeks ago at Mid-Ohio. Remember, he got loose in turn 4, made the contact with Daniel Buttafuoco that almost cost him that race after our leader got caught with lap traffic entering turn 1 for the final lap. Spencer Kostowicz had that and then nearly got it back. Hill, I think, was lucky that Kostowicz was to the outside of Buttafuoco and eventually used Kostowicz as a bumper to maintain going the straight direction. So there was all that hullabaloo for Hill 2 weeks ago. Now a wreck at the end of this race, and it won't be a good finish for him. So he will have a lot of work to do in order to get back towards the top 20. But focus on our race here. Final restart. What can Johnny Avila do, and can he do it before we get a yellow flag? Big jump from Navarro. He'll pull Hurst with him. Avila will have the momentum as soon as they start rolling through the corner, but can he get out in front or near Andrew Navarro before the yellow flag comes out?
We'll see it right here as they go into turn number 1. Both Hurst and Navarro did a fantastic job, but you see Avila on that outside lane using those fresh tires to his advantage. They're side by side. Here comes Avila trying to get to the back end of Navarro.
One big wreck to the inside. Yellow flag is out. Andrew Navarro is going to hang on and survive. And Avila almost had enough time to make it happen, but this race will be official. Andrew Navarro just has to make it around for another lap and a quarter or so, and he will go to victory lane at the virtual Pocono Raceway.
And Andrew Navarro, with that call to not come in, is going to pay off. And he not only holds off Michael P. Frisch, holds off Johnny Avila, but holds off Taylor Hurst, Max Brady as well. Just a fantastic drive from Andrew Navarro, who dominated this race. And a fantastic job by him here at Pocono.
Navarro had one of the best trucks all night, so no surprise that he is a lap away from claiming the victory here in race number 2 of round number 2 of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series at Pocono. A big win for him, which not a stranger to this. He did win at Michigan last year in round number 2, and we'll be looking for another berth into the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series coming in the fall, with the intent of improving a little bit more and getting an opportunity to compete amongst the best of the best in the 2024 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. But for now, just a leisurely half lap around behind the pace car to bring it home and claim victory.
And you'll see right here, commendations from Avila to Navarro, and what a race that we just witnessed, James Pike.
Lots of nuttiness, and we indeed went very caution heavy. Justin Malillo, any thoughts on what we've seen here tonight?
Just evolved, James. I really would have liked to seen how it would have played out with the fresh tires versus the old tires with just 2 laps straight up, but they just couldn't stop wrecking, and unfortunately, that is what we get. That is what we deserve. A finish under caution, which no one really likes to see, except for Andrew Navarro. He's probably ecstatic right now.
Andrew Navarro back to victory lane in the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing Series. He wins race number 2 of round number 2 for 2023 at the virtual Pocono Raceway.
And a great job by Navarro. And just a round to go at Mid-Ohio. We had last lap chaos with Buttafuoco and Kostowicz, and tonight Andrew Navarro is thankful that we don't see any more last lap chaos, as we'll see what happened to put us under our final caution flag of the night that would end the race. And you'll see a little further in the back here, Daniel Eberhardt right here. It just gets stacked up. You see a little bit of contact from Smallwood behind and sends Eberhardt into that inside retaining wall.
And this was for about 20th on the racetrack. I couldn't quite tell who the other truck was that got into him at this stage, but a tough break for Eberhard, who would have liked to have been a little bit higher up at the end of the day, but instead ends up in the fence and finishes deep in this field here, as we'll get a look and see who got into him to sort of change this all around. And I think the answer to that question was Smallwood and Burrows, a mixture of the two. Checking up to not hit Burrows, and then Smallwood got in the back of him. But at any rate, here is your full field rundown to tell you where your favorite driver finished. Andrew Navarro, your winner over Johnny Avila and Taylor Hurst. Max Brady and Michael P. Frisch complete the top 5. Kwame Scott, Brandon Hanna, Brendan Meal, Cole Hooper, and Christopher Hill complete the top 10.
Yusuf Ghali started 35th tonight, comes home with an 11th place finish. Great job for him. Timmy Pacioli it remained inside the top 10 and will finish in the 12th position tonight. James Houghton in 13th. Anthony Burrows in the 14th position. James Holzer comes home in the 15th position. Jake Nichols, 16th. Kevin Champagne, 17th. Brad Wright in the 18th position. Jonathan Delaney, 19th. Rounding out your top 20s, Austin Johnson.
Boyd Hogan was 21st this evening. 22nd went to Jesse Kaplan. Dominic Lukumsky finished in 23rd. Blaze Crawford was 24th. Blake Neer finished in the 25th position. 26th went to Spencer E. Burns. Matthew Bear brought it home in the 27th position. And Seth the Merchant finished in 28th, while Daniel Everhart and Daniel Smallwood rounded out the top 30.
And looking on back at the rest of the field, all the retirees from tonight. Hunter Johnson, we saw in a few incidents, a tough night for him. Alex Kolonix as well in the 32nd position. John Jenkins was involved in that wreck with Jonathan Delaney early on, finishes 33rd. Chris Wetz in 34th. And Trayton Lapsevich in the 35th position, rounding out your field.
We will wait and see whether or not we may get visits from some of our podium finishers, and right on cue. Perfect timing, because as we bring that up, we now bring into the booth Andrew Navarro, who you had a very, very wild race, as did a lot of this field, but how much of the final 5 laps or so did you spend with your heart in your throat, and what went behind the decision to stay out that ultimately got you the win?
I honestly, we would race some city opens before this, and people that stayed out, and granted, it's, very different from city open. Road to Pro more stuff's on the line, but the one common denominator is they don't stop wrecking. So I stayed out. I was feeling really good. Frisch was, I think, 17th. He was the first guy on new tires, and that wreck kind of brought him up, I think, to 4th, which was unlucky. So at that point, I was like, trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was working with Taylor Hurst all race, which was nice. I just wanted to stay behind him that first run so we could pull away from the entire field. We did that pretty well, other than Smallwood that caught us. We had like a 3-second lead. So I was like, hey, man, I'll count you down if you want. So we got in the radio communication with each other. And I just want a big shout out to Taylor, because I wouldn't have won that without Taylor's restart and him pushing me. So, but yeah, that was just chaotic, and I knew I had to stay out if I wanted to win the race.
How tough was it to manage everything, especially once we got in the second half of this race and we started seeing all the yellows?
It was really tough, especially for me. Michael, he seemed like he was unsealed, like setup wise with the ride heights, because he wasn't eating the bumps at all. Whereas with all the yellows and the fuel burn, and excuse me, with all the fuel burn and then the no tire pressure buildup from green flag laps, I was just eating the bumps over and over again. I couldn't even get down to the bottom. I was cranking so much wheel. I was getting so loose. So that was definitely the biggest problem. Our setup was literally like a hair off the ground, with full fuel. So the second we have no fuel in the back, it just pinches the nose down, and we were eating bumps. But I think if that race went green, I think I shot to win. But I'll take them how I can get them right now. So also want to thank Martin Sports, by the way, Celebrity Cruises, everybody that's on the car, Adrenaline Captures, Bladen for making this badass paint last night, last second, Platinum Performance, Premier Racing, get your setups there. That was unbelievable. Thank you guys also for broadcasting.
Indianapolis Raceway Park up next. High, wide, and handsome that track tends to be. What are your initial thoughts heading just west of the Circle City in 2 weeks' time?
Feeling pretty good. It's a day race. I won there last year in round 2. Just gotta basically just, I don't know. It's such a weird race. People pitting, track position. But if you have a good car, you can make it work, and you can come from the back to the front. So that's what we're gonna try to do if we don't qualify well. Obviously, the goal is to qualify on the pole and just drive away. But yeah, hoping for a good showing there.
Andrew Navarro, winner for the first time in 2023 in round 2 of the qualifying series, looking to repeat in 2 weeks at Indianapolis Raceway Park and go back to victory lane again.
Thank you.
So now we begin to turn our attention towards what should be a much more straightforward race, I think, at Indianapolis Raceway Park. But before we do, Johnny Avila is in the booth. He is with our Caleb Hoffman.
Yeah,
Hey,
Johnny,
guys.
coming up just short there on those fresh tires. I mean, besides that caution, is there anything else you think could have played out differently for you?
The only thing I can think of is maybe if I had a little bit of a better jump on that last restart to have a better position. But all in all, it was a great race. Thankfully, I took tires there, and I was just able to make some moves and get some luck and drive my way up.
Absolutely. And we saw all night from that machine that you weren't scared to try to run those higher lanes or maybe push the truck 3 wide. What makes you so comfortable with this car track combination here at Pocono with the trucks?
I have no idea. There's something about that third lane that just fits my driving style. Like even last year, I was able to rip it up there and just get the run down the straightaway. And especially being stuck in traffic, you got to try to figure out ways to make a move, make a pass. So I just kind of go where they're not and try to make it work.
Absolutely. And in 2 weeks, going to be at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. Do you think that track suits your driving style? Do you anticipating a good run there for yourself?
I think I'll do pretty good. I had some good speed there last year till a wreck. Um, the biggest thing is just surviving that track because it'll either go green for a long time or you'll just have a bunch of crashes. So we'll just have to wait to see how it plays out and keep the truck clean.
Well, really worked out for you here tonight. Congratulations on your second place finish, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us here tonight.
Thank you very much, guys. Looking forward to talking to you again.
That is Johnny Avila, and he's feeling confident here, James.
Avila will step aside as our second place finisher. We are now joined by Winston-Salem, North Carolina's Taylor Hurst, who finished in the third spot. And T-Dog, how tough was that for you just to manage? And when you look back at this race, it's not a win, but how do you value and how do you view this podium run?
Well, it's good to talk to you, first of all, James. Been a little while. And second of all, I'm just glad to get through that race because I was not very confident going in. I knew our Q pace was really good, but our race it was really tight. And luckily, I got the pole and I was able to keep it out in some clean air. So I wasn't too bad on the tight side the first run, but then luckily we freed it up a little bit. And once I got in traffic, it wasn't too bad. But I'm just glad we survived all them late race cautions, man. It was pretty stressful. A lot of the guys in the series don't understand the big picture, that we need to just finish these races and try to make it to the big leagues. But that's how it goes, man. I mean, I'm just glad for this one to be over, to be honest.
So you're happy you'll take the podium, and then Indianapolis Raceway Park coming up. How do you view that? What do you think that track has for you, and what do you have for it?
Well, I love the flat short tracks, man, but I've never raced at that track before, so it'll be interesting for me to adapt to that. I know it's a little bit different. You kind of run high there. It's not like a bottom feeding track, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know our guys had some pretty good pace there last year, so we should be able to carry it over.
Looking to bring up another good finish in 2 weeks for Lockdown Racing, but tonight P3 for Taylor Hurst here at Pocono.
Thanks, sir. Just want to give a big shout out to McConey Setup Shop for being on board again this week, and of course, Lockdown Racing, like you said, in the Area 51.
So there's Taylor Hurst, and now Caleb Hoffman. To Indianapolis Raceway Park we go, where you look at tracks that are in the sim, and there's a way you race it in real life, and there's a way you race it in iRacing. In real life, you want the bottom at Indianapolis Raceway Park. You want to be able to hook the apron. In the sim, you want to be high, wide, and handsome and right up on that fence as far as you can go. It is one lane there and about one lane only.
Yeah, and you know, from a technical aspect, that track is a lot different than what we saw here tonight at Pocono. But you heard Johnny Avila kind of mention it or hint towards it, that it can be similar in the fact we can either see a lot of green flag runs in that race, or we could see pure pandemonium like we saw tonight. And from what we've learned so far in the first 2 rounds, it's to expect chaos. So far, I mean, with all that last lap calamity that happened at Mid Ohio to this event, where, I mean, you know, I think we came in expecting, you know, 1, 2, maybe 3 cautions, but then we got what we got. Just a lot of aggression throughout the field, and the urgency really picking up for a lot of these guys as we continue to tick off through events on this schedule. But Indianapolis Raceway Park, it should be a lot of fun. And thoughts here from Pocono are, you know, I thought we were going to see a lot more of that fuel, you know, tire strategy come into equation, but man, we got something a lot different for sure. That was crazy.
Once they started wrecking, they never really stopped. To be honest,
no.
It was a flurry of yellows until the end of the race, and the whole back half of this was just caution, little spurt of green flag racing, caution, green flag, caution, green flag. It bounced back and forth. And again, I think of a point I made earlier tonight, but this is the kind of night where your point situation is going to be thrown into chaos a little bit, just because there are a lot of drivers that qualified well, started well, and just did not end up well at all. Seth DeMerchant in particular stands out to me. Had a top 10 truck all night long, ends up in 28th. Daniel Smallwood started in 7th. He finishes 30th. Brad Wright went from 8th to 18th. There are some people that were going to come out of here with a great points night and ended up taking a very, very big hit that they will have to claw their way out of. And then you think of some of the drivers like a Spencer Burns or a Ryan Hill, who really do need a good run at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Again, only 7 races in round 2 of the qualifying series. So we're going to be nearing the halfway point by the time the checkered flag falls at Indianapolis Raceway Park in 2 weeks' time. But that's a problem to deal with in August when we visit Indianapolis Raceway Park here in the sim. August 3rd, the first Thursday of the month, 9 p.m. Eastern here on the FTF.GG Twitch channel, and plenty of action coming up in the world of FTF over the course of the next week or so. We've got the Rectangle 500 for FTF1 coming your way on Saturday night, 9 p.m. on the FTF.GG Twitch channel, featuring the IRO1 at the racing capital of the world, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Winsdell is here at Pocono Sunday night at 8, and then it's all eyes on the Firecracker. The 200 on Monday night, the 400 on Wednesday night. Both 8 p.m. start times for those races, and big, big shows we expect out of those 2 races before we begin turning our attention back towards the rest of the calendar and to the return of the FTF Cup Series, which will be coming your way next Saturday and Sunday from New Hampshire and Pocono. A doubleheader weekend after the summer break for the Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series. Winsdell also on the docket in 2 Sundays as well. And then we round out this stretch with the season finale of the SimRapMarket.com Core Summer Series from Michigan International Raceway. That's the last broadcast on FTF.GG's Twitch channel before we're back in action with more qualifying series action. That core finale Monday, July 31st at 9 p.m. Eastern. So a busy 2 weeks of racing coming your way. And oh, for what it's worth, if you were paying attention to the other split on the Fireball Talks NASCAR YouTube channel, Briar LaPrade made a last lap pass to get the win in the other race. He now unofficially jumps to 3rd in the point standings behind Taylor Hurst, who's in our race tonight, and Daniel Buttafuoco, who was victorious last time out at Mid-Ohio. So the points battle beginning to take shape, the action beginning to heat up in the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series, and more questions to be answered from just west of Indianapolis in Brownsburg, Indiana, 2 weeks from tonight here on the FTF.GG Twitch channel, August 3rd, 9 p.m. Eastern for race 3 of round 2 of the 2023 eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series. For everyone here at FTF.GG's Twitch channel, for our producer, Zach Johnson, for our pit reporter, Justin Malillo, and for my colleague in the booth, Caleb Hoffman, I am James Pike. Thank you so much for watching our coverage of the eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series from the virtual Pocono Raceway. We will see you in 2 weeks' time from the virtual Indianapolis Raceway Park.